off the stage, like fresh out the kitchen, fresh off the stage, you know what I'm saying? Bonnaroo, and I'm headed over to the Super Jam and to, jam out with a very intimate band. I've never done, anything like this. Randomly just got on stage with a band I never played with. But, I trust these guys, because they're very professional and they've been rehearsing my numbers, my little 2 cents I'm about to put in. These guys are very good, very good. I'm not worried about them, I'm worried about me. Well, whole wardrobe change is very important for what I'm about to do now because, we're going back in time musically, so the perception, look of it all, fashion has to be correct. I was born. I was born by the river. Wow. In a little tent. But oh, just like the river, I've been running ever since. Well, I've fallen in love with Bonnaroo because of the one simple fact that everybody's here on one accord, and that is music. And that's why I'm here. That's why they're here. A change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond those skies. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Yeah, once upon a time, not long ago, as a little boy would sit on the porch and talk to my mother. How many of you talk to your mother sometime? We would talk about how I was going to be famous one day, how I was going to be real famous in my houses, cars, and do a lot of sweet things for her. And, oh, I remember those days, and I'll never forget it. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to look at me now, look at me now, look at me now, look at me now. I was born. I was born, yeah. Oh, I was born. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's up there beyond those skies. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. I know Don't hang around. It's been a long, 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 long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Listen, and I go to my brother with my hand held out like this, and I say to my brother, I say, brother, help me please. But all he keep doing is knocking me back down, back down. There were times when I thought that I wasn't gonna last too long. But by the grace of God, I can stand on my 2 feet and look up to carry on. It's been a long, 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 long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Can I say it again? It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. If you believe it, say it, say it. It's been a long. Hello and welcome to my channel. Go ahead, hit the like, hit the share. This video, you'll just see when it starts to play. Because, as I've said before, history repeats itself. They may change up the formula and how they get rid of the legends, but the end result is always the same. You know, in the past, the best way to get rid of these artists is a tragic death. And it's always mysterious. And the facts never add up. Nowadays, all they have to do is assassinate your character, which is what we have seen them doing with R. Kelly. Strangely, they will use your own kind to bring you down. And you will never see it coming. Let's talk about how this all got kicked out. How everybody was alerted. And how everyone was deceived. Now at this point, if anybody thinks that Tim Savage orchestrated this whole thing by himself, you're sadly mistaken. But Tim Savage and his family did make the perfect pawns. Allow me to demonstrate. This was a so-called official trailer put out by the Savages. And as this video progresses, you will notice that the Savages are willing to do anything necessary to get their moment in the spotlight, including alienate themselves from their daughters and then portray the narrative their daughter is a sex slave hostage infected with herpes. How is it in any way normal for them to take it upon themselves to make this janky-ass trailer, as they call it, for a docuseries in which they participated in?
Maybe, just maybe, they thought because they were headlining the stories, they would be the stars of this whole debacle. At the end of the day, their main goal was to get a show for themselves. Well, they created quite a show using their daughter.
So I bring you to this video. Y'all could go look it up. It's Jay Savage. You can look it up, Jay Savage, R. Kelly diss, and find it. It's basically this little diss song they made to R. Kelly, and more proof in what I'm saying that they're more clout chasing than actually trying to get this girl back. And why they doing all this, it's no damn wonder why she don't want to come home, because they just doing too much. Let me skip to where Daddy was doing a lot of talking, because I want you to just see the differences in how he went first from being all gangster, coming at R. Kelly like, you know who it is, you better return my daughter, like, that tough macho man shit. So he realized that didn't work, then he wanna change the memo. And that's whack. This is a vast contrast from the Tim Savage that was in the interview during the press conference.
Now, the first time I heard about this whole story, it was because of that last clip that I showed you all. Angry dad threatens R. Kelly. And it's crazy that he can get away with publicly saying he's threatening R. Kelly, leaking these stories to these blogs, and then wants to turn around and make a fraudulent, threatening allegation against R. Kelly's manager. Nonetheless, let's move on. These series of videos and stories started to emerge 2016. Depending on which story you get from them will depend on what date was the last day they saw their daughter. Because now the story they're sticking to is December 26, 2016. Some articles say December 2017. But either way it goes, according to their story, their daughter was supposed to be working with R. Kelly. My thing is, this all went down allegedly May 2015 is when they say she met R. Kelly. But why is it in 2014 you got Tim Savage sharing R. Kelly is bugging? It makes logical sense for you to clearly know past allegations about R. Kelly to be content with your daughter working with him. And after finding out that the relationship is deeper, you have this whole intervention that you post in which it's clear why your daughter wouldn't want to come around you all because of the badgering. And on top of that, you're publicly humiliating her at the same time. So from the beginning, the whole story being spent by the savages didn't make any sense. One minute, they come out and say she's a hostage because they know that's the way to get the police involved. But then, after everything escalates to R. Kelly being arrested, they begin saying, well, she could leave, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, I believe whatever went wrong in the relationship between the savages, somebody put them on to linking up with Jim Derogatis. According to the first articles that came out, it said the first email from Jongelyn Savage arrived in November of 2016. Now pause. Keep in mind they said their little intervention with Joycelyn was December 26, 2016. Yet before that, they had reached out to Jim Derogatis. Who told them to reach out to them? That's a great question. But let me continue. It says, Jongelyn, who goes by Jay, was concerned about her daughter, Joy, who was living with R. Kelly in Georgia. He is still up to his same tactics, she wrote. He just makes sure they're over 17 or 18. So let's pause right there. According to what Jongelyn was telling Jim Derogatis, he's still up to his same tricks. What same tricks? How is it you all of a sudden know about these same tricks after being upset with R. Kelly about whatever it is you're upset about? And then to go on and say he just makes sure they're 17 or 18, yet now you're pushing the narrative that he's a pedophile by saying that he just makes sure they're over 17 or 18. That would be legal consent age. Yet you went on this crusade to make him deemed a pedophile. Continuing on, Jay and her husband Tim were the first of 14 sources who told Jim Derogatis the same story. 6 women who slept with R. Kelly lived at his 2 Georgia rental properties, moving between a 7-bedroom French-style mansion in Jones Creek, a suburb 30 miles northeast of Atlanta, and a 4-bedroom single home 2 miles away. According to Derogatis, despite months of reporting with 14 sources on the record and extensive corroborating documentation, the story proved difficult to publish. I wonder why. Because it's not fitting anything illegal what the savages have to say. Their daughter is of legal consent age. She's a grown adult. So technically, they have nothing to say. Yet they weren't going to stay there. They were going to make sure to dig up a story. Any story. So I believe Jim Derogatis, if the Savages didn't already know, Geronda Pace linked up and concocted an even more detailed story. Now, according to original stories, the Savages claim their sources consisted of former members of R. Kelly's entourage who vouched for their concerns. Those people would include Cheryl Mack, Kitty Jones, and Asante McGee. Yet, Kitty Jones and Asante McGee portrayed themselves as victims on Surviving R. Kelly 2 years after the fact. So it's just strange that in 2016, these two people in particular were being called former members of his entourage and not victims or accusers. According to Tim Savage, people in Mr. Kelly's camp, even though they take his money, they don't like him. They reach out and tell us what's going on so they can sleep at night. So the Savages, back in 2016, tell Derogatis that people inside R. Kelly's camp are on his payroll taking his money but don't like him. But it's so strange for people to believe that said people could be orchestrating events and activities that lay blame on R. Kelly when he's not at fault. It's rather strange to me, all these people so quick to jump on this hate R. Kelly bandwagon, neglected to think about a few facts and how everybody keep running to this Jim Derogatis, the same person who refused to testify in the case in which he was sent a tape which is being classified as child porn. And instead of immediately handing it over to authorities, he goes and calls up people, have them viewing it, and yet he's not charged with anything to this day. We're listening to people like this.
Ask you for money. These things are going to be told soon enough. So a lot of things that people don't know, they're going to know. I don't have to raise up a bag to get my point across at this point in time. But what I do need, R. Kelly, is for you to meet me one-on-one. These things are going to be told soon enough. So a lot of things that people don't know, they're going to know. I don't have to raise up a bag to get my point across at this point in time. But what I do need, R. Kelly, is for you to meet me one-on-one. Where's a radio station? Where's a TV station? Where's a talk show? Whitney Williams. Whatever it may be, your choice. I want to meet you, but you're a coward. You don't want that. I'm looking forward to talking.
People are listening to characters like this. And all of that jibber jabber he said, does that sound like a concerned parent who's fearful his daughter is being held in a sex slave cult? He talking about meeting him at a news or media outlet. Why? We're listening to people like this. People who actually know them and have spoken out against them.
I tell the truth, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. I know this dude personally. Jocelyn Savage, daddy. Timothy Savage, personally. I used to sell cars with this guy. So I know he lying. What made you want to come out with the story? Because he tearing another black man down. Tearing him down, bro. Slander. Extortion. At the highest. So you saying all this is a lie? A lie. The biggest scam of them all, bro. I'm just gonna be real with you, bro. I'm not protecting nobody. I don't know R. Kelly personally. I don't have a vengeance against Tim. I don't have a vengeance. I don't know Jocelyn. I don't know nobody, bro. But I do know one thing, bro. That it's a case of extortion, bro. From this guy Mount personally. If you don't know anybody. I don't know the daughter. I don't know R. Kelly. But I know Timothy Savage. I used to work with him. So I know what was said. And I was there when it was said. So what was said? Basically, if R. Kelly don't keep giving him money, he was in the process of losing his Mercedes. He lost the job at Par's Cars, selling cars, used cars. That he was going to extort him for money. He was going to come out and say that he had his daughter hostage. So when the checks stopped coming, his mouth started running. When the checks stopped coming, his mouth started running. Just think about it.
But this time was like a little bit after my 16th birthday. I did lie about my age and tell him that I was 19.
We listening to people like Geronda Pace, who openly admits she lied about her age, who you can pull up multiple articles from 2008 stating she was 18, which she was not. They're taking the statements from the career criminal Asante McGee, also statements from the former manager or whatever she called herself, Cheryl Mack, who had all these different debit cards access to R. Kelly's accounts. And last but not least, stories from the woman who's also been put in the spotlight in saying that she was recruiting girls for R. Kelly. But I guess for them, it would be much more convenient to later be claimed to be a victim rather than be called an enabler, like they're trying to call so many other people. But anyways, the point was, you got all these shady characters. Tim Savage, his wife, Jim Derogatis, Kitty Asante, and Cheryl Mack. And they all will put on this front like they didn't know each other. I quite frankly think it's all bullshit. I think every last one of these people individually linked up. It ain't hard to find Jim Derogatis when, as you heard Azriel's mother say, she researched R. Kelly. So I'm pretty sure she pulled up some of this guy's articles. And if it wasn't for the Savages, the Clarys, and maybe a few others, would never have come forward. But the fact of the matter is, in the pursuit of their clout chasing, they set up all these fake accounts to unleash the information they wanted out there. You got them calling out Azriel Clary and, of course, Geronda Pace. Some people are now speculating that Geronda and Jongelyn are related because they do share the same last name of Johnson. but I can neither confirm or deny that. All I can say is clearly they linked up in the process of sharing their stories with other people to get them on board. And the problem that arose with Geronda is when she linked up with Andrea Kelly, she then claimed that Andrea scammed her out of money. Now that has got to be the story to get all. When the scammers get scammed. Last year, former R. Kelly captive Geronda Pace came forward to corroborate stories that Kells keeps a harem of underage women. Funny, it went from a harem to a cult. Anywho, now Geronda is accusing R. Kelly's ex-wife, Andrea Kelly, of exploiting her and other Kelly survivors. I wonder what other survivors Andrea Kelly allegedly exploited. Furthermore, why these allegations were never investigated. It's quite unclear who was behind this 97 baby girl page, but it's very obvious that it's someone from the Savages or even Asante McGee. At first, they started posting in 2016, May 2016, congrats to at R. Kelly, and then start talking about Azriel. I believe this was the first stages of the Savages trying to get this story out there. Strangely, this person says at R. Kelly, this is my Aunt Alice. But this person is portraying to be Azriel's best friend. And isn't Alice married? Why would you be suggesting R. Kelly to date her? Sounds like a jab. If you would go to that page, you would notice that that page had quite a lot of conflict with Azriel's sister. She had a problem with a lot that was being posted about Azriel. And if I do recall, Angelo had that same problem with Asante McGee. This page did spark a lot of interest. But again, I have reason to believe the Savages or either Asante are behind that page. That page also took part in calling out alleged enablers in R. Kelly's camp and even pointed out a fact. At one point, the page was calling out to Don Russell, telling him to do something. And then in comments, it became clear that Don Russell is not R. Kelly's manager. As another page, R. Kelly Saga Facts, pointed out. And if you haven't come across that page, it's allegedly somebody within R. Kelly's camp putting out information. But it didn't really take much to confirm for me that Don Russell was not R. Kelly's manager. So when he began to pop up and then try to back away from that title, calling himself advisor or whatever he called himself, that was another red flag about him. So anyways, let's go back. According to the articles, Jay said her daughter first met R. Kelly May 23rd, 2015, under the guise that he was going to further the 19-year-old's music career. Strangely, if you go back to their older profiles for them just trying to use their daughters in any way possible, it would appear that Joy had many interests, from modeling to hair to whatever went with the wind. Clearly, January 2016, all was well with Jonjolin and R. Kelly. And though you don't see Tim, you're not going to be able to convince me that he wasn't aware of what was going on. So then, by 2017, they start displaying more of the sign the petitions, help me save my daughter. The question is, what happened? 1 minute, if you go back to their story, they're saying that they got in contact with R. Kelly through an associate of his coming to their boutique, J Savage Collections. They never said who that person was. However, if you skip forward, then they began to say the person Kevin Giles set up whatever with R. Kelly. According to them, his whole crew is involved in this. Kevin Giles initially set this up. R. Kelly didn't reach out to us personally. It came through his management. So, R. Kelly didn't reach out to them personally. They claim to have met someone from his inner circle at the boutique they were running. And then they say Kevin Giles arranged their little meeting with R. Kelly in which he was supposed to be helping Joycelyn. So let's fast forward. We clearly saw Tim Savage prompting Asante McGee in their first press conference. And in that first press conference, Tim Savage was expecting Angelo Clary to also be there. Of course, that rubbed Tim Savage the wrong way, so I'll show you what he did to continue to pursue pushing his narrative. They, of course, linked up with Mute R. Kelly. They began posting on social media trying to get people to get Kim Fox involved. And then they began dropping information about people who had not come forward yet. For some strange reason, they wanted to focus on Azriel. Oh, that's right. They wanted Angelo Clary to come forward. Then they began to talk about the so-called enablers. And you know what's strange? R. Kelly's house is robbed in the midst of him holding hostages. At this point, it does not take a genius to see that all these series of unfortunate events happened through the initiation of certain individuals. Over the course of these last few months, so much information has been leaked, so much audio has been leaked. It should be clear why R. Kelly is in the position he's in now. And it has nothing to do with him liking young girls. And it's definitely not because he is a pedophile. It is because he entrusted his career into the wrong people's hands. And these people all have their own agendas. Now, as I said from the beginning, when everybody wants to just keep pointing the fingers, clearly the people that were surrounding R. Kelly did not have his best interests in heart. And you can see by some of these interviews that have been conducted, some of the statements that have been put out, you can see exactly why R. Kelly is in the position he's in. According to this post, at the time it was posted, it was being claimed that Brian Nix is the only attorney that RSK consent to receive funds in his honor. And while everybody's so concerned about this defense fund, it should have set a red flag off, because if you do a little bit of research, you will come to find out the same person, Brian Nix, has been associated with the missing $500,000. Feel free to go look it up and see what has been said by Brian Nix. The same person that not only had dealings with this $500,000 along with Linda Mitch, that particular attorney was supposed to be handling the cease and desist for Lifetime that would have prevented all of this bullshit from happening in the first place. Yet he did not. Yet he relied upon a person who has no law background to draft a janky ass cease and desist letter, which has now been interpreted as a threatening letter to one of the accusers. It's mighty funny every time R. Kelly has music coming out. There's people coming up with these lawsuits. There's all kind of shady business going on within R. Kelly's camp. And if you ask me, he had absolutely no awareness of it. From the people accepting money on his behalf for concerts that he didn't perform at, to even people saying that there were impersonators putting on concerts on his behalf. Last but not least, because if you go back to my other videos on Tim Savage, it should fill in the gaps of information that I did not include in this video, considering it is a little lengthy. But just go back and look at my other videos on Tim Savage and just put the information together. And that should give you a good, clear idea of the type of person Tim Savage is. So as far as him commenting on my last video about him to go to his boring ass YouTube page or Instagram to find out the truth, I will never get the truth dealing with the Savages. They wouldn't know the truth if it came and bit them in the face. So as far as a lot of this information floating around here, if it's not coming directly from R. Kelly or his legal team, I'm not buying it. I'm not supporting any merchandise with his image on it. And I'm definitely not going to share any music that I already told you was stolen from him last year. Everybody got so sidetracked with the defense fund, but there was more going on in the background. Where is R. Kelly's money? Is the question that should be on people's mind. Who is benefiting from leaking his music? Why is a certain individual going around still trying to put together tours and all this other shit while this man is fighting for his life? Why is that same person included in a lot of activity that has been deemed witness intimidation against R. Kelly? Now's the time for y'all to stop playing and recognize there is obviously people in high places pulling the strings. But the people like Tim Savage, Geronda Pace, Kitty Jones, Asante McGee, the Jim Dara Goddesses, they're all pawns in this takedown. How many more legends are we going to sit back and watch being destroyed right in our face? How many times are we going to let them keep pacifying us with bullshit remedies that we know have no long-term effects? Meanwhile, they're profiting from our oppression. This includes music, this includes education, this includes business, this includes everything in the world. There's always somebody in a higher place pulling strings and using propaganda to taint people's minds. Stop being fooled by misinformation and do a little research for yourselves. It's okay to ask questions when people come up with stories and claim to be a victim. It's okay to ask questions when the information put before you doesn't make any sense. Now, with these savages, their story has been all over the place. Even in the beginning, trying to state that Joycelyn was 17 dealing with R. Kelly, which was a blatant lie. That just showed the desperation that was going through these people's mind, all to be famous. Once upon a time, men were violated in front of their people physically. Now, all you got to do is spread a little negative information, negative stories about a person, and that will do so much more damage. No one will take the time to research the facts and find out the truth, when at the end of the day, our history shows us that so many men have been falsely accused, incarcerated, and even murdered behind false allegations. Women who make false allegations, and even people who, like the savages, go all out to spread false narratives, should be penalized just the same. Forget a lawsuit for civil damage. These people need to be held accountable for all the damage they have done for the last 4 years. Now that you're realizing that they use patsies, they use distractions to let the guilty go unpunished. Meanwhile, they destroy the characters of your people and collect the estates. Isn't that strange how we keep letting that happen?